Hey guys, what's growing? It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. Today we're starting the second in our series of caring for your berries and shrubs and stuff in the wintertime. Today we're going to talk about blackberries. So I have only one type of blackberry that I have intentionally planted. It is the triple crown blackberry. And the reason I chose this one is that it's thornless. So I actually have in the creek bed behind me, from about here all the way to the road, so about 70 feet, there is the native blackberry of California, the Pacific blackberry. And for the first year that I lived here, I harvested from that, but it is so thorny, like just billions of thorns. And I really don't like harvesting berries from thorny shrubs. So, funny story, I was an archaeologist for a very long time, and one of my projects, actually the project I was doing for my master's thesis, this is back in the 90s, was in Curry, North Carolina. I worked for the National Park Service and for the Southeastern Archaeology Center, and this was at Moores Creek National Battlefield. It was in the summertime. It was extremely hot. They were actually having a heat wave, so we had triple digits temperatures, and so we were all wearing shorts because it was so hot. But the yellow flies were out like crazy, biting, you know, just they're so painful. If you've never had a yellow fly bite or experienced them, they're like horse flies or deer flies, it's the same thing. Chiggers, we all got chiggers terribly. In fact, a couple of us, including me, got staph infections from scratching the chiggers so much. And where we were trying to survey transects, we had to use machetes to hack through dewberry briars, acres of them. So basically the only upside to that project, because we never found a single artifact. In fact, there was a doctoral dissertation written a few years prior saying that the park was actually in the wrong location along Moores Creek, that the battle actually did not occur there and it had occurred further down. Anyway, that's an aside. But the only upside to this whole project was that the dewberries were able to be harvested. So you could stand there waiting for the transit surveyor to read your location with your theodolite, and you could eat dewberries and use the thorns from the dewberry bushes to pick out other thorns that you got from the dewberry bushes as you were trying to hack through. So that was my never again. So when I found out about thornless blackberries, I was super excited. The Triple Crown is great for my zone, zone 9B. I think they're hardy down to zone 5, but don't quote me on that. Make sure you check. There's lots and lots of different kinds of blackberries, and so there's probably something for your zone. Blackberries come in 3 main types of structures. They have erect blackberries, semi-erect, which is what these Triple Crowns are, and trailing. Now, the great thing about the Triple Crown is that it's a semi-erect blackberry, which means some of its canes will be erect and strong and sturdy, and some will be trailing. And the nice thing about some of the trailing ones is that they can root into the ground. You can cut them off, dig up that new plant, and put it somewhere else. So it's really easy to propagate them. You could propagate other types of blackberries as well, but this is just a great, easy air layering way to propagate your blackberries and have more from initial just a few plants. Now I have mine planted along my fence line. I have one right here, and there's another here, and then another in between the blueberry bushes. And then further down, I have 3 new ones that are just babies. So they're not actually gonna get any pruning today. They're real small. Here, let's go look at them real quick. Okay, so here's one of the new ones. And you can see it's real small. It's just got a few leaves on it, and it's not gonna do much this year. In fact, I can tell by the direction of the leaves that this was propagated off of, it probably was on another plant. It air layered itself into the ground, then they separated it from the mother plant, and that's how that one became a plant. So all I'm gonna do for these little guys here, we've got a few more along this fence line. There's just a couple. All they're gonna get today is a little layer of compost, and as the canes come up during the year, I will train them up this fence. So the great thing about this fence is that I can trellis them to the fence without much effort at all. Yes, some of them grow outside the fence and then the deer come along and enjoy, but the majority of the berries that I have are on this side of the fence and we've been able to enjoy. So this will be the third year for these guys here. This one back here is a little bit smaller, and I'm not going to do heavy pruning on it. But the other two are much bigger, especially this one up the hill here. So you can see this guy is huge. So the way these all blackberries grow is they have two types of canes on them. They have primicanes and floricanes. Now floricanes are the ones that actually bear the flowers / berries, flora for flowers. So primicanes are the first year canes. They do not carry flowers. They only grow vegetatively for the first year. Then the second year, they produce flowers and then berries. So what I need to do here is come through here, and actually I had to do some major pruning on this in the fall already because it was so out of control. And actually the fall is an okay time to do that. What you do is you find all the canes that gave you berries that year, so that would be all the floricanes, and you remove them because they will never produce again. And then you train your primicanes how you want them on your structure, and you cut them back. So this cane here was a primicane last year. This year it's going to be a floricane. So it got really, really long. It came out about 15 feet. I cut it back. Here we have it, it's about 2 feet long. So that's what we want to do. I don't know that I'm going to have a whole ton of pruning that I'm going to have to do here because I did this in the fall. During the summertime, as the canes are developing, the primicanes are developing, as they get really, really long, you can cut them back to about 2 feet, just like this one here, off of the main cane, and they will now, this year, produce fruit on these canes. So you can see here, I've got something else growing in here. This is a fioja, or also known as pineapple guava. And it was already here on the outside of the fence, so basically I just keep cutting it back. They do produce fruit, but I don't want this one here because this is where the blackberry is. So I'm going to take that guy out, and I'll have to keep removing this until it's completely eradicated. So it'll be a couple of years, but it's okay. It's not causing any problems, and it's actually really pretty. I mean, I can use some of these, oftentimes these stems I will use in bouquets because you can see how long the stems get, and they're good filler. But I do have 2 of those bushes way back there on the other side of the fence, and I can cut from those freely. So I don't need this one here. So this is my biggest blackberry. I have done some of the cutting back already this year, but I'm going to take a little bit more off of these floricanes because then they will produce more side shoots come spring and give me more berries. Now, over here on the other side of the fence, you'll see some really long ones. I'm going to cut these guys way back and try to tie them into the fence. So just like I did with the blueberries, I have sterilized my tools already. They don't have any, there's no thorns on this blackberries. I'm just putting on gloves because it's cold out here. My hands are cold. So this here is the main cane. It's got stuff coming off of it, but these are dead. So I'm going to pull these off. These probably carried fruit last year. I am going to give these guys compost around the base because they do like a little bit more acidic soil, not as much as blueberries. So I don't have to worry too much about that. They can be in the ground. But, oh, see, and I already see some flowers starting here. but they do like a little bit more acidic soil, slightly acidic. So I am going to give them some compost. That'll help with that. So right now I'm just pulling off these stems that are coming out. They're dead, they're from last year. Just doing some cleanup. And I can see where there are new buds here forming that will come out of all of these nodes to give me side shoots. And these new side shoots are going to be primicanes this year and floricanes next year. So these canes that you see that are already existing are the ones that are going to carry the berries this year. And then any new canes that form this year are going to carry my berries from next year. And there's a little bit of dead right here. I'm going to take that off. Okay. All right, these are nice. I mean, they're a little bit longer than you normally want them. This is about 3 feet. I want to cut it back to about 2 feet. Same thing with this one. And again, that's going to stimulate the plant to grow side shoots. So I'm still going to get berries. Okay, I have, these are a little bit longer, but I have woven them into the fence, so I'm actually going to leave them. And then this guy, bring it inside the fence line. Okay, now I need to take out the fioja. Pretty basic pruning for this time of year. But you can see I have 2 main canes here, and then I've got a bunch of lateral canes. They're all set. Now I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, so this berry plant has 1 main stem and some lateral stems. These aren't that long. I'm actually going to cut these a little bit shorter, only by a couple of inches, to give it me about 18 inches here. I'm cutting above a bud. There's a bud right here. All right, this guy's weaving through the fence, so I think I'm going to leave him. Same thing with this one. This one's really long, but it's going to give me, see this? This is great. So I'm actually going to leave this. It's going to come all the way down to the ground. It's going to send out roots, and I'm going to have a new plant out of it. All right, going to cut. And the reason I'm cutting these guys is that they're in the walkway. So I want those to be shorter. I'm trying to train this mostly, not necessarily flat, but to take advantage of the fence more. So I'm going to come in and get rid of all those little sticks like I had in the last one. And because we're in a higher zone here, these berry bushes tend to be partially deciduous. So they lose some of their leaves, but there's still plenty of actually happy, healthy leaves on here. And then there's another fioja here, which I'm actually going to take out. It's growing on the other side of the fence, but it will start to impede. And the deer don't eat these, so I can't rely on the deer to take those out for me. And I have a baby oak tree there and here too. Up above me are native Californian live oaks, and so they drop their acorns and they just start growing trees everywhere they do that. So now we're all done. I've got compost put around each of the plants, and they're looking good. These are very young plants still, especially this one here. Very young berries, and so it's going to take them some time to get established. And like these guys, the little ones here, they're going to be completely trailing this first year, which is normal. And I will allow them to run, and then I will tie their canes up the fence line once they get big enough to do so. So that's it for blackberry pruning for the winter time. I think you can see that that's a pretty easy job. All you have to focus on is making sure and you can do this after the fruiting. After everything fruits, you can cut off those branches that gave you fruit, so in late summer, and then all you'll have left is the current year's primocanes that will become floricanes next year, and then you could just do some training and then some pruning off in the late winter of things that, you know, maybe died over the winter or just got kind of yucky, whatever. You can do that then, and then you'll always have fresh berries. And every year that goes on, the production will be higher and higher. So just like with the blueberries, don't let this scare you. You can totally do this. We all make mistakes, but unless, like I said, unless you cut it back to nothing or you cut off all of the current year's floricanes, you're still gonna get fruit. So have some confidence, go out there with your pruners and get at them. If you haven't grown blackberries yet, you can totally do that in the ground or in containers. A lot of the varieties are great in containers. So just check out what's available to you. I got mine from Stark Brothers, but there's lots of great purveyors of berries. And this is the Triple Crown blackberry, but there's other thornless blackberries out there too, as well as regular thorned varieties that are more erect so that you don't really have to train them or trellis them. The super erect varieties are bushes that stand on their own. So, but a lot of times they'll spread more easily, as is the case with our native blackberry that has taken over our entire creek bed and crawls out into the road. So we have to make sure that we cut that back every year. And actually here, I can show you what it looks like right now. You can see down here in the creek, some of them are still have some leaves on them, but this gets extremely dense in the height of the season. All the leaves come back. It's nearly impossible to move through there, and it's very, very, very thorny. But there's worse things than thorns. So if I didn't have my Triple Crown thornless, I would still be harvesting from these guys over here. However, there is a big taste difference I have noticed. The Triple Crown are super sweet and they're big. They're much larger than our native blackberries. So check out some varieties, see what might work for you. You can even grow them in a pot, so you don't have to have a huge space to do this, and you'll be happy to have fresh berries on your plate for some of the spring, much of the summer. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden. Good luck in your pruning efforts. You'll do great, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.